Title: The British Empire, a Crown Across the Globe. There was a time when a small island off the coast of Europe ruled a quarter of the globe. Its language, laws, and legacy now echo in nearly every corner of the world. This was the British Empire, ambitious, ruthless, complex. The dawn of empire, 1497 to 1600. In 1497, John Cabot set sail under the English crown, seeking a western route to Asia. He found Newfoundland, marking the first English claim in the New World. Yet England was late to the age of exploration, overshadowed by Spain and Portugal. The oceans were already divided by ambitious powers, but England, learning fast, turned to privateers and pirates, men like Francis Drake, who plundered Spanish treasures and circumnavigated the globe in the name of Queen and Country. Building the foundations, 1600 to 1700. In 1607, England established Jamestown, the first successful colony in North America. This marked the beginning of a new colonial strategy, not just exploration, but permanent settlement. The cost, however, was steep. Indigenous peoples were displaced, enslaved, or wiped out by disease and conflict. Meanwhile, in the Caribbean, sugar plantations began to fuel a growing demand for both profit and slave labor. The British slave trade became one of the darkest chapters of empire. Millions were forcibly taken from Africa in brutal voyages to feed plantation economies. The imperial machine, 1700 to 1800. Trade, more than conquest, built the British Empire. Ships from Liverpool and Bristol carried goods to Africa, slaves to the Caribbean, and sugar back home. Profit became empire's lifeblood. In the East, a different empire was taking shape, not ruled by the crown, but by a company. The British East India Company became a state within a state, controlling trade, diplomacy, and eventually war. By 1757, following victory at Plassey, the company controlled Bengal, one of India's richest provinces. From here, it would expand, exploiting divisions and wealth across the subcontinent. The Victorian Age and Imperial Zenith, 1800 to 1914. By the mid-19th century, Britain was the world's workshop and its policeman. The empire guaranteed trade routes, imposed British laws, and policed the seas. This was Pax Britannica, a fragile peace enforced by redcoats and warships. Infrastructure flowed with imperial control: railways in India, telegraphs across Africa, ports in Australia. Yet this expansion was often violent and coercive. In 1857, Indian soldiers, sepoys, rebelled against the company's rule. Fueled by cultural insensitivity, economic exploitation, and military grievances, the revolt nearly broke British control. In its aftermath, the British Crown assumed direct control. India became the jewel in the crown, a prize and a burden that defined the empire. Empire's strain and resistance, 1900 to 1945. By the 20th century, the empire faced growing resistance. In India, Gandhi led millions in nonviolent protest. In Ireland, rebellion led to partition. In Africa and the Caribbean, voices demanded self-rule. The cost of control grew heavier, even as the empire tried to reform itself. Violence was never far behind. The world wars drew the empire's colonies into global conflict. Over 2 million Indians served in World War I. Africans fought on both fronts. Caribbean workers kept supply lines running. But when the wars ended, the contradiction was clear. Those who had fought for freedom demanded it for themselves. Collapse and transformation, 1945 to 1997. In 1947, India gained independence, followed by Pakistan. The partition caused immense suffering, with millions displaced and up to 1 million dead. Across Africa and the Middle East, demands for independence grew louder. Some transitions were peaceful, others descended into bloodshed. The Suez Crisis of 1956 marked the symbolic end of Britain's global power. The empire, once unchallenged, was now vulnerable and exposed. Legacy and the Commonwealth, 1997 to present. In 1997, Britain handed Hong Kong to China, marking the formal end of its overseas empire. Yet the legacy of empire continues, in the Commonwealth, in migration, in conflict, and in culture. The empire's impact remains contested. For some, it brought law, language, and infrastructure. For others, it left scars of racism, division, and exploitation. Final scene. The British Empire reshaped the world and left behind a tangled legacy. Its influence can be read in legal codes, in city skylines, in spoken accents, and in unresolved tensions. From conquest to Commonwealth, from rebellion to reconciliation, the British Empire was not one story, but many, and its echoes still shape our future. The British Empire, a crown across the globe.